Hey guys, it's your host, Bailey Cartwright. Welcome to the Stronger Scars podcast, where I invite others to dive deep into the ups and downs of physical and mental scars. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Stronger Scars podcast. Today, I am joined with Reagan Swindall. She is currently a senior at the University of Arkansas. She is going into her 5th year to play soccer, and she just had compartment syndrome surgery. So I'm very excited to have some fresh insight with you guys. I've gotten so many DMs of people who are just thankful that people are talking about compartment syndrome more because it's very new in the world of injuries. And yeah, so Reagan, welcome.
Hello.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know some, we've been chatting for a few weeks now, but just kind of give us a little background on you.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm Reagan Swindall. I go to the University of Arkansas. I play for the soccer team and I'm a nursing student, so I graduate in May. My hope is to play another season because of my COVID year in the fall, so just hoping to see what happens once I get to start running. But yeah.
All right, so nursing student, that's probably hard to do on top of soccer.
Yes, I have been so lucky with nursing teachers and coaches who work around it, but it's definitely not been easy. I feel like I'm in the teachers' offices like once a week trying to like plan out my schedule. So it's rough.
Yeah, my mom was a nurse and like
Really?
she worked on top of nursing school, but like I'm assuming having soccer and like school and a social life, that's a lot.
Yes, it gets rough with the traveling. So with practice, where it's pretty easy to work it around, but when we have to travel, it makes it hard to have those 12-hour shifts for nursing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because you have to do
Yeah.
clinicals and everything.
Yeah.
Do you think that is like, are you in like not enjoying being injured, but like do you feel like you kind of know a little bit about like the body and how things work now because of that?
Okay, I that's so funny you say that because that's actually something like I was able to talk to my teachers about is like I feel like I'm able to connect a little bit more with my patients just because like I'm 22 years old. I was like, oh, my body's invincible. Like, this isn't relatable for me. This isn't going to happen. And then all this health stuff started happening for me. So I was like, wow, like, I feel like I can connect to you. Like, I feel like I understand what you're going through a little bit more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's cool. I think that'll be interesting for you to kind of take with your career.
yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, chronic exertional compartment syndrome, you guys know this is my fave topic. So, in the beginning, like, kind of just take us back a little bit to like when you started having symptoms. What were those symptoms like, and like the overall experience in the beginning when you didn't really know what was going on?
Yeah. So I could go back to the beginning of college and I would have little moments here and there each season where I was like, this isn't normal. Like, something feels wrong with my legs. And every time I would find like an excuse for it. I'd be like, well, I'm a freshman. Like, my body's just not used to doing this much. And then sophomore year, I remember my legs just feeling so bad all the time. Like, I felt so tired, but I was able to deal with it because we were only playing one game a week because it was COVID year. So like that was something that like I could hide it in a little bit. And then we went to the NCAA tournament that year and we had 2 games that week. And I remember we played Santa Clara and I just came off the field and I was like, I have cement in my calves right now. Like, I can't move. And that was really concerning. But again, I was like pushing it off. I was like, I'm 22 years old. I'm healthy. Like, this isn't a big deal. So same thing. Going to my junior year, I get COVID. So I missed some games. So again, just like ways I'm able to like hide it in that. And then going into this last year, last spring and this fall, it was like we were just go, go, go all the time for soccer. And I was just never recovering. I felt like I would go into a game and say my legs started out at a 10, like they felt great. And then by the end of that game, like my legs were at like a 5. I felt like I'd go into the next game or the next practice with my legs still at a 5. There was just no recovering.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing nursing at the time with my clinicals. So my coaches and I were like, oh, you're just tired from clinicals. Like, that's what's going on. And I used that. Like, I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, that's what it is. Cause I didn't want to believe something was wrong. So I was like, okay, this is an excuse I can use. So I was like, yeah, I'm just tired. So then I went into this fall and our first game, we were playing SLU. And we were at the end of the game and I just went down. And like I blocked a tackle and I tried to stand up and my calves just gave out on me. And I was rolling and crying and I would have to say that's the most pain like I've ever been in. and my calves just swelled up so much I couldn't walk for like 2 days. So that's whenever we were like, this isn't normal. And even then I was trying to say like, oh, it was just a cramp, it was just a cramp, like keep letting me play.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a few games in and we're at, I think, Grand Canyon State. It was right after we had played BYU. It was our second game of the week. And we were about 15 minutes into the game and I'm just in tears. And I'm just saying to myself, like, please take me off the field. Like, I can't do this. Like, I don't want to play. Like, this hurts and stuff. And my legs had just gone so heavy. And again, just had that like cement feeling in my legs. My feet were starting to tingle. So he subs me out. And that after that game, he like texted me and was like, let's have a meeting. And I had a meeting with my coach and he was like, it was a good, I don't think I told him this, but it was probably the most encouraging conversation for me because he was like, this isn't your fault. Like, this is not normal. This shouldn't be happening. Like, you need to see a doctor. And that's whenever I started taking those steps to see what was going on.
Okay. Lots of comments. So first and foremost, shout out coach, because that's rare that like, I feel like taking that blame off you, because I feel like a lot of times with injuries, we blame ourselves, even though we literally have no control over it. But for him to immediately take the blame off of you, I feel like is incredible. Like, he's worlds apart from other coaches that I know.
Yes, it was a huge weight off my shoulders when he said that.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, like, you talked about making excuses. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this injury in particular, at least in my experience, sounds like your experience. I remember at the very beginning, like, yes, like there's two sides of this. One, the person who's actually going through it, you make excuses because one, you don't really know what's going on. You just want to be fine. Like, at first it does start out mildly. So like, you think like you can play through it and there's just like something off. The other side of it is your caretakers, the people who are supposed to be the ones who are diagnosing you, getting you help, whatever it is. I feel like, at least, you know, and a lot of people I've talked to, that experience of making excuses is also a big problem, because it's like, okay, it's shin splints, or you need to tape your arches, or you just are out of shape, whatever it is. But I feel like, you know, then you have two people, two sides of things making excuses. And then when it actually does turn out to be something serious, they already set you up to have this like negative attitude about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was always my biggest thing, is like, in my head, I'm always like, oh, if there's a problem, you can just work harder and fix it. So I would try and work harder and make this better. And my coaches were always saying like, oh, you just need to run more. Like, your legs you just need to get more fit. So I would do more running and it would actually like make it worse. It would make the problem worse. And I would say every single year of soccer, I would draft a text to my associate head coach, Sammy. And I'd be like, something's wrong with my legs. Like I'm not recovering, like something's wrong. And then I would delete it and I wouldn't send it, because I would be like, my big thing with the compartment syndrome was like, when you're playing, it hurts so bad. Mm-hmm. But then once you stop playing, it stops hurting really quick. So I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, if I was actually injured, it would keep hurting. Yep. So like, since it's stopping, I'm just not being mentally tough. Like, I'm not injured. It's in my head. So then I would never send her that text and I would just put it on myself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that, I think, also goes along with like, if it goes away so quickly, then I should just be able to play through it and then I'll be fine after the game.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I'd be going to dinner with my family after the game and they'd be like, what was going on the field? Like, you were in tears and now you're fine. You're going to dinner with us. And I didn't know how to explain it to him. Like, on the field, it hurts so bad. But then we'd have halftime and I'd be like, oh, I'm ready to go again. I'm fine. And then I'd go back on the field and have the same exact problem.
Yep. Yeah. I'm really happy you brought that up, just because I've tried to explain like to people who haven't gone through it exactly, like, it is just a very different injury from other injuries. ACLs, you know, injuries that happen on the field, there's a tear, there's a break. It's very different because it is such an internal injury. It is a mental battle injury where you have to tell yourself like, no, like, I'm going to hurt myself in the long run. It may seem like it's going to be fine in a half hour from now, but if I keep pushing this, like, I could really do damage, but no one else can see that. And it's really hard. And I'm happy you brought that up, because that's one of the things, like, if you're somebody who's listening to this and you're like, oh crap, like, you know, I thought maybe I would have this, but now that they're talking about this, like, I really think I have it. Like, go get it checked out, because just because like other people can't see that you're hurting, that doesn't mean that you're not.
Absolutely, for sure.
So did you hear about compartment syndrome before you went through all this? What was your background? Did you know about it?
Okay, so in nursing, we learn about acute compartment syndrome, but I never heard about chronic. So like that was just not in my frame of thought at all. But Delaney Snyder, one of my best friends, I think you know her. She has compartment syndrome. And I was talking to her one day about my symptoms and what was going on. And she just looked at me and she was like, I pray this isn't what it is, but like this sounds like you have compartment syndrome. And I didn't know what that was, but I went home and well, few people had made comments here and there to me. And that's why I went to talk to Delaney, because people had made comments like, well, I hope it's not that, or like, I hope you don't have compartment syndrome. Like, I'm praying for you, anything but that. And like, I didn't know what it was. So I was like, why are these people like so worried about me having this? So I go home and I know you're not supposed to research your symptoms. It's so bad, but I
Not
just
this
went
one
down,
especially.
dude, I went down the rabbit hole and I started researching and I was reading these people's stories. I was reading the symptoms and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly what I have. And I felt super encouraged at first because I was like, oh, like I have that, like perfect. I know what this is. I can fix it. And then I got to the part about the statistics. And I remember reading that the back two compartments, so your posterior and deep posterior, had a 35 to a 65% chance of working. And the front two had an 80 to 100% rate. And I just remember reading that. And this is such a negative thought, but like my first thoughts were, one, I'm never going to play soccer without being in pain again. And two, my legs are never going to be the same. Like those were my first thoughts. And then I finally understood why people were like, oh, I hope it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, researching compartment syndrome, don't do that. I promise you'll just get a little
Yeah.
I remember I don't know if it was before my first surgery or after, but I was like in this state where I was just like watching the surgeries. I was like, I want to know exactly what goes on. I was looking up YouTube videos of it and I was so grossed out and I was like, I cannot believe that happened to me. But like I just got so fascinated with it because like it's just not a common injury. Like I guess it's
Oh, I can't tell you how many scar pictures I looked at.
yes, the scar and like everyone has like a different like version of the scar. Like they
Yes.
do the two little ones, the one big one. And you just like you said, you go down a rabbit hole and it becomes super intimidating when it shouldn't be that intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, my biggest thing is because I did go down that rabbit hole and I shouldn't have. I got so overwhelmed by it and just this like worry. And my doctor, like we didn't know what was going on. We were like taking all this time. And I remember one night I was like praying about it and I was like, okay, like I need to know if I have compartment syndrome because this is really stressing me out. Like I need answers. I'm tired of waiting. And the next morning, my doctor texted me and was like, hey, I think we need to go ahead and get you tested for compartment syndrome. So I was like, okay, like let's do it. Let's get this over with. Because my biggest thing was like, I'm tired of sitting and waiting. I just want to take steps forward.
Yep. Well, let's talk about your testing because so
Yes.
Reagan and I talked on the phone like a couple months ago. That was a while ago
Yeah,
now.
it was a while ago.
But all of my testing, which I think I've had like 10 tests. Like I really do. Like I know that's absurd, but I think I've had 10 tests. Mine were all the older version where they literally take the big needle and have no, they just don't care. They just go in for it. I think all of mine were that one. And you mentioned that you got like this new MRI something. So I'm curious. I'm sure other people are curious. So kind of explain that to us.
Yeah, so I did my initial appointment with my doctor, and the reason I found out the reason why it was taking so long for me to get tested is because I talked to our soccer doctor, and she was the one that reported to the doctor who would have performed the surgery and would have done the test on me. And whenever I was explaining my pain to her, I had said, I can run and I'll be in pain. And then if I like wait 2 weeks and run again, like I'll still be in pain. But she interpreted that as in like for 2 weeks straight, I would be in pain, which
Okay.
isn't a sign of compartment syndrome because it comes when you run and then it goes away. So they weren't in a rush to get me in for an appointment because they're like, oh, there's no way you have it. So going into that appointment, they had told me, there's no way you have it, but like we're just like marking it off the list. And I went in, I told this doctor my symptoms, and he was like, okay, you definitely have it. And I was in complete shock because I was like, wait, I came into this and you told me there's no way I had it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, I misunderstood your symptoms. So I explained it to him and he was like, yeah, I definitely think that's what it is. And he was like, if we do the pressure test, which is what you did, it can be subjective because it's based on how much water you put in and the pressure that comes out. And he was like, I would have to poke you a minimum of 16 times because I think you have in all 4 compartments. Mm-hmm. So even though that is the gold standard, he said I could do an MRI and it's not a normal MRI. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's a special MRI. And he would do a before, and then I'd go and I'd run, and then they do an after. And you can see where the pressure and the swelling is, and it'll tell you if you have it. So our hope was I would show up on the MRI, and if it didn't, then I was going to have to do the pressure test, which is the gold standard. So yeah.
Gold standard. Let's see.
Yeah. What they say. It is very subjective, but
yeah, I that's the one thing that people I've talked to, I've tried to prepare them for, is just because, okay, so let's back it up a little bit. Compartment syndrome, one of those in the air injuries, like basically the only way to like truly get diagnosed, like the only way that someone's going to go in and cut you open is to confirm that you have it, because they can't see that you hurt yourself. So there's a variety of tests nowadays. I know the technology is incredible, but so you're going to have to get a test done. And I can't even tell you how many times I went into the doctor's office to get a test done, praying that it actually showed I had compartment syndrome. Because that's to the point where you get like, you're praying you have it because you don't have answers and you just want answers. I don't know if you felt that way, but I remember like so many times just being like, please be an insane number because I need someone to hear me. Like I need this to be validated.
wow, no, I'm so glad you said that, because that whole season, I was just struggling. It was so hard physically. And I'm one of those people where it's like, I don't want anyone to think I'm dramatic. So I like was trying to play it off, and I wasn't being honest with my coaches. I wasn't being honest with my roommates or my teammates, because I didn't want to say, oh, I'm in so much pain. And then us do a bunch of tests and not find anything. And then be like, oh, it's in your head. And we had done other tests and we had done a ton of blood work, and we weren't finding anything. So I kept being like, no, I'm fine. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, whatever. And so whenever I went into that compartment syndrome test, I was like, please find something so I can fix this, because I just need a solution at this point.
How long in between testing did you have surgery right after?
So I want to say I was still trying to play after I got tested, because he told me I wasn't going to make it worse. And it definitely got worse. So originally I think I got tested in, I want to say October, and I wasn't going to get surgery till January because I was going to finish out the semester of playing. And it just got too bad and I couldn't. So I ended up having to move my surgery up, and I got surgery the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like I've had a lot of, so I had two different surgeons. One did my first one, the other one did my last three. And safe to say I trusted my other guy a little bit more. But yeah, the whole like you're not gonna hurt yourself more, I get, but I also don't get. Like my understanding of compartment syndrome, and again, like I'm not a doctor, like I'm just going through self-experience, but like you're stopping blood flow in your legs. Like can't be that good to just keep on going. And yeah, like I've had conversations with my doctor. I was like, just tell me to like chill. Like tell me I need to take a few weeks off. I need to hear somebody with authority tell me it is okay to just chill. And I mean, like that was what's helped me the most, because yeah, like it did keep hurting. It got worse. Like even if they're saying it won't get worse, like it got worse, I assure you. So like that was just something I think is important to highlight.
That's so true. And I'm so glad you said that, because going into that doctor's appointment and him saying, you can keep playing, you're not going to make it worse. Like that made me feel like, well, I have to keep playing. Yep. So if I don't keep playing, like I'm choosing to like stop playing for my team. I'm choosing to like let them down kind of thing, because he didn't tell me I couldn't play, you know?
Yeah.
So I wish going into that meeting, he would have been like, no, you need to stop, because those weeks of playing, like I wasn't enjoying soccer. I was just trying to survive it because it was so hard on my body. And I don't know about you, but like the mental health side of it, like I never felt like I really struggled with my mental health prior to this injury, but I just had so much anxiety about soccer. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to lose my starting spot, or, oh, like I'm going to do this. It was so much like, I am going to let people down. Like my legs are going to stop working. I play defense. Like I'm going to let them score a goal. We're going to lose a game because I can't run. Like it was just so much fear around that. Like I can't do the running at practice because my legs are going to hurt and people are going to have to run more for me. Like those kinds of things.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I had a little bit of benefit of mine happened freshman year, and literally like I was irrelevant at that point. But no, I think this is a funny story, add some humor. But so when I first got diagnosed my freshman year, the coach at the time, who I actually liked. A lot of people didn't like her. I really liked her, but one of the funniest moments I'll never forget. I got tested for the compartment syndrome, and it was the big needle test, and that was probably at like noon, and we'd practice at what, like 4. So I get to practice, not expecting to play because, traumatized. And she goes, "All right, Bailey, like, let's go. Like, this might be your last time playing for a really long time."
No way.
And that's just like how her personality was. So I'll never forget it because it's like now looking back, it's so funny. But in the moment, I was like,
Oh my gosh.
but okay. So can you explain a little bit? Okay, are there 4 compartments or 5? Because I've heard both. 4?
Okay. I've heard both as well. I don't know exactly where the fifth compartment would be or what it's called, but like what I was told is you have your anterior, you have your lateral, you have your posterior and your deep posterior. And your deep posterior is the one that's attached to your tibia, and that is why it has a lower success rate because it's hard to like reach and get to because you have to go across the tibia and it promotes bleeding. So that's why a lot of doctors don't want to release it.
Gotcha.
I don't really know where the fifth compartment would be.
I honestly have no idea. I feel like I don't even remember what mine were. But so did you have all 4 issues in all 4?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
So that's another thing, like, again, for people who may be listening, going through something similar, I don't know what the best way to go about this. Every time that I've had my surgeries, even if they weren't all 4 bad, since he was already going in there, he released all 4. I don't know if that's common, but that would be something that you guys may want to ask your doctor.
Yes, I was told going into my surgery, which I did come back positive for compartment syndrome in all 4, but he told me going into my test, if it only comes up in 2 or 3, he was like, you do have the option to go ahead and release all of them because it is common for athletes to say I had it in 2 compartments to have a release on those 2 and then for it to come back in the other 2 because the pressure just builds up in a different area.
Okay, my next logistical question before we get into like surgeries, all that fun stuff. What do you think is the cause of compartment syndrome?
This was one of my first questions to my doctor and every person I've spoken to about it. So that has been the hardest thing for me with compartment syndrome is you go to a doctor and they all have a different theory. They all have different reasons and different ways for recovery and different ways to do the surgery. And it's pretty much this doctor looks at you and it's like, I'm 100% positive this is what you have, but I'm not 100% positive why you have it or how to fix it. But like, this is the best bet kind of thing. So my doctor told me the things that put me at risk are that I'm between the ages of 18 and 25. I'm a woman and I run a lot. And he says, we don't really know why, but it's very common in athletes, soccer players specifically, and military people.
See, okay. Not to, like, I feel like I'm talking about myself a lot, but like, I'm trying to make
No, I want to hear it.
So my cousin is a male and he's a day younger than me. And we both played soccer, our entire lives. A year after I get my first surgery, he gets compartment syndrome.
Wow.
So like I just like can't help but think that it's one of those things where this is my own theory. You're like genetically
I was going to ask you that. Do you think it's genetic? Because they told me no, but I think it is.
I think
one of my cousins had it.
Yes, I think you have the genetic for it and then the gene for it. And then, regardless like how much you push your body, like whatever the threshold is, I think it's already there. If you are going to get, what's that called? Like a I don't know, disposition. No.
Yeah. I get what you're trying to say. I'm not for sure.
So then I feel like I think if you like push to a certain limit or whatever, then if you already had the gene, then that's when it comes to life.
Okay. That's what I think too. And because originally, whenever I found out I had this, I was talking to my parents about it. And my dad had really like a lot of problems with his calves as well, but he never ended up playing at as high of a level as what I did. So we like had the theory that like, oh, if he would have played at that level, he probably would have had issues with it too. And one of my cousins had it. But then I asked my doctor about it and I was like, hey, like I had someone in my family with it. We think my dad could have had it. And they were like, no, it's like not genetic.
So the one, not my surgeon, but like, so he worked with this guy and this guy was like, I think I sent you his name, but he's like, compartment syndrome guru. Like I just like talking to him was so interesting, but he like did a bunch of research on it. And I think he like thinks that it's like partly genetic, partly like, depending on the level and like how much you push it.
I feel like obviously I'm not a doctor, but I feel like part of it has to be genetic because why would not everyone at this level be getting it, Like it has to be something with our bodies that's different.
Mm-hmm. And I
So
also like in the very beginning, so many people were like, because we're Under Armour. What are you guys?
Nike.
Nike. So in the beginning, everyone was like, oh, it's because you're wearing Under Armour. And I was like, oh, like I guess, but like I've switched cleats like all the time. And then it was, well, you're playing on turf or you're playing on grass.
Oh
And
my
like,
gosh.
you know what I mean? It was just like,
Yes.
okay, but
Or
like
it's like
everyone
wear the
else is
compression
too.
sleeves, wear the insoles, wear, like do these things. And I'm like, this is not helping. Or they're like, oh, I was doing Normatec twice a day. I was ice bathing every night. I was getting needled. And I was like, this is not the problem.
Right. Yeah. No, it's crazy. And it's like, I just like, that's why I'm just very grateful that you came on, because again, like you just are giving a very like new perspective because you're currently living through it. And it's not that's on my back burner. Like I like when I go upstairs or I do like long hikes and stuff, like it's always going to be a part of me, and I've accepted that. And like it's honestly at this point kind of fun for me to like figure out what works, what doesn't work. But I'm just happy that like we get an updated version of like how life with compartment syndrome is.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So okay, surgery, let's talk about that.
Great. So my favorite part. So okay, so I had my surgery the day before Thanksgiving, and the original timeline for me was going to be, okay, well, backtrack. The first time I talked to a doctor, they told me I was going to be running in 6 weeks, and I would like playing soccer. And I was like, there is just no way. Like that does not sound safe at all. And I wasn't even off assisted walking and like all that stuff in 6 weeks. So that did not happen. But so anyways, I was supposed to be in my wheelchair for 2 weeks, and then crutches with boots for 2 weeks, and then just crutches for 2 weeks. And then after that, I would be walking without assistance. And then around like the 8 week mark, I could try and start running. Well, my timeline got totally changed because I ended up being in a wheelchair for a whole month. And so 2 weeks longer than we had expected, but I just had a ton of swelling. I had terrible range of motion. I just couldn't stand up. But then whenever I got out of the wheelchair, everything progressed pretty fast. So I didn't have to go on crutches with boots. I just went straight to crutches.
I was gonna say the double boot, man, that's tough.
Dude, that would have just looked silly.
That's tough.
Yeah, so I was grateful to not have to do that. And now I'm about 9 weeks post-op, and I'm getting to Ultra G tonight for the first time.
Okay, so some more specific questions. What was it like when you first took your band-aids off and saw the scars?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I had to wait 2 weeks to take my bandages off and to see them. So I had these bandages from toe to like mid thigh. They were so irritating, so hot. I felt so claustrophobic in them. So I was just like, I can't wait to see my scars. I want these off. And when they took them off, he had done a different kind of stitching to allow for swelling. So when he took them off, I had bruising just everywhere. Had all gone down to my ankles. So I had massive cankles. My calves were the size of my thighs, and my whole foot and ankle was just black. And the scars just looked so massive because they were so swollen. But now I mean, shout out Dr. Carly. My scars are like 1.5 inches. I have 2 on each leg, and it's just like a cut, and then I have a few dots on each side of it where the stitches were.
Yeah, I feel like I saw yours somewhere. Did you post them somewhere?
I might
I
have texted it to you.
might have. I don't know. But yeah, yours look chef's kiss.
Yeah, it's so funny. So the week of my surgery, I was at church, and they were doing a sermon on like stones of remembrance from in the Old Testament whenever they were in the Jordan River, and God was like, stay in the Jordan River and I'll dry it up so you can walk through. So they walk through the Jordan River, and he tells them to pick up stones and bring them into the promised land as stones of remembrance. And so after that sermon, I was talking to my mentor, and I was like, look, like I'm so worried about my scars. Like I feel like I'm gonna be insecure about them. Like I don't know what they'll look like. And she looked at me and she was like, no, like those are gonna be like your stones of remembrance. Like that's gonna be how you remember that he was a friend to you and he was faithful to you like through this hard season. So like after that conversation, I'm like, you know what? I love my scars. Like I'm grateful for them because that was a really hard season, and like he is going to deliver me from that.
I think too that, I mean, for me, the scars were probably the hardest part about it all. Like,
yeah,
obviously I was upset I couldn't play, but like I was a teenage girl and I cared about what I looked like.
of course.
And mine were not so pretty compared to yours. And I actually, this is literally wild to me. The first guy did staples.
Oh my gosh.
So I had two on each leg, but he was long ones. And I
Wow.
think I had like 24 staples on each scar. It
How,
was
okay,
it
my
was
question for you
brutal.
is like, how quickly did the scars heal for you?
Okay, so I like am very prone to infection. Like
Wow,
I
okay.
just like am anytime I'm sick, I get an infection. So I had a time from hell with it. Like I was on antibiotics all the time. Like there was pus, there was like I had to get liquid extracted so many times. Like it was a
Oh my
disaster.
gosh. Wow, that is so tough. Oh
And then
wow.
I had like I don't understand the whole staple thing. I had like little dots from the staples then that took forever to heal. And I was like, buddy, like what were you doing to me? Like
And this is from your first surgeon?
yeah, and then from there on, like he my second guy could go in there, like I think for two surgeries he went back in the same spot and then he had to make new ones. But I think it's just with this injury, this is like one of the biggest things people struggle with. And I
Mhm.
think with any injury, like when you have a surgery, is the scars, but these ones are just like in your face. Um,
Yes. It's
and
never just one, it's normally more than that.
it's hard. Like it is hard to see those on your legs, like when you're wearing a skirt or shorts, like every day right there people look like because it's not
Yes.
something super common, like people don't really understand why you got those scars. um but you learn like your situation, like you had to something clicked for you and you could resonate with, and then you love them. But that takes some people longer than others. And if that's something you're struggling with, is like a scar or how you look, like try, like remind yourself it doesn't matter. And like you have to love the marks that you have because of the story there is behind them. And like you beat something, like that's why you have it, because you went through something hard, you beat it, and now you get to remember it.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to pretend that like people don't make comments about it. And obviously I'm super grateful because they are very small. But when you're around soccer and a lot of people have had their own kind of injuries and their own kind of surgeries, it's not as big of a deal. But then you get out in the regular world and you're wearing shorts or a skirt or whatever you're wearing, and people are like, what happened to your legs? Or like, why are they on both your legs? Like, what'd you do? And like people do make those comments. And I remember it was like a running joke at my PT place in Rockwall because I was doing PT, and every time a patient would come in at the same time as me, they would always make a comment about my legs. They'd always be like, "Oh, what'd you do? Like why are both your legs cut open?" And like all my PT people would just laugh because they would be like, every time someone would come in, they'd be like, "Oh, we're just waiting for it. We're just waiting for them to say something."
It's tough, it is. And like I think like the demographic a lot of times for this injury is young female athletes.
Yeah,
And it's a tough one. The only advice I can give to someone is like find the deeper meaning in it for you. And like everyone's gonna have that deeper meaning, everyone's gonna have something that clicks, and like learn to love them because you're stuck with them for a while. I mean, I'm how many years out and they're not completely faded. I don't think they'll ever be completely faded. And like I love them, and like you'll learn to love them too. Like everyone will learn to like love them and be grateful for the lessons that they learned along the way.
that's awesome. And I'd say the only other little bit of a tangent, but the only other little tidbit of advice I'd have for the surgery is like, so I had a friend who found out she had compartment syndrome a little bit after me, and she ended up having the surgery a day before me. So we were just keeping each other updated, like on our processes and stuff. And her recovery was just going so much faster than mine. And that was really hard for me because, I mean, she was starting her running progression, I think, when I was still in a wheelchair.
Oh
And I
wow.
was just like, oh my gosh, like something went wrong with my surgery, like something's not right. And I would say listen to your doctor because every doctor has a different opinion on what it's supposed to look like, what recovery is supposed to look like. And for me, I asked my doctor for a very specific list of exercises. So I didn't just want, okay, phase one, this, phase two, this. I want, no, in phase one, you do this, and this, and you don't move on until the next section until all these things are completed. Because I was like, this isn't super common and my trainers have never dealt with it. So I want something like specialized for me and exactly what you did for me.
Mhm. I think too, like with that, I don't I think it's an injury. We're taking the cautious route. You
Mm-hmm.
can't go in the wrong. You're not, like after surgery. I mean, I know I talked to you about the scar tissue was one of my biggest issues after. And that's something when you wait too long to get back in there to grind up the scar tissue, that's one side effect that could potentially happen. But other than that, like take your time, ease back into things. Like, I think your body will thank you in the long run. I know that is what allowed me to continue playing, was just like taking it easy, really listening to the protocol, not fighting with my athletic trainers about going back too quickly. And it's frustrating because they're like Swindall's going through like weeks of just sitting in a wheelchair or just weeks of on crutches, but like in the long run, that is truly what your body needs after. I mean, it's a big surgery. It's a traumatizing surgery. They go in and they cut a lot of things up. So just, I don't know. The time is something that is really important for this injury.
Yeah. And I don't know for you what it looked like after surgery, but I know for me, like, again, hearing like, oh, she's running, and like I was still in bed and I would have to like text my mom, like, hey, can you come move my legs so I can roll over in bed? Or I would text my dad and be like, hey, like, I need to go to the bathroom. Like, can you come help me? And like, that was teaching me a lot about patience, because I was like, I want to be where she's at, but I'm still texting my dad to help me get out of bed, kind of thing. But just trusting, like, okay, like, no, my doctor knows what he's doing, and taking my time is what's going to get me the outcome I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely teaches you patience. I was in bed for a long time and I was cool with it.
Just turn some Netflix on.
Like everyone bringing me food, like I was cool with it. So, okay. So after surgery, I know, just kind of walk us through. Let's talk a little bit about the mental side of things. We've talked a lot about like technical things, logistical things, but what was it like to go through all that? And this was your first like big injury, right?
Yes, this is my first surgery and first injury as an athlete. So,
All right.
yeah,
Walk us
I
through
would
it.
say, so going into surgery, I had a lot of fear because, so I was going through clinicals at the time. So I had to tell my teachers why I wasn't going to be in class. And I would tell them like, hey, I'm getting this surgery. And just their faces, when I tell them, they'd be like, isn't that like a really serious surgery? And I'd be like, yeah. And then it was always this question that would get to me. It'd be, doesn't that not always work? Like, isn't that not 100% chance of working? And it was just that constant reminder of like, okay, like my symptoms might not be completely alleviated. And my doctor had told me that, and we had talked about the risks, but it was just that reminder that really scared me. And yeah, so one of my biggest questions going through this recovery has been like, do I find identity in soccer? And I try to always say like soccer is just something I do and it's not who I am. But I think at the end of the day, when you put so much time and effort into the sport, yes, we do find some identity in it. And yes, of course, like losing it scares me a lot. But again, I was talking to Delaney about that. And I was just telling her like mentally, this is really hard for me because one, I don't know where I'm going to be in 6 months. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be playing. I don't know if I'm going to have to retire. I don't know what that looks like. And she was like, she had to step away from Louisville soccer for a reason she couldn't control as well. And she was like, yes, like when you play soccer, you feel like Superwoman. And she's like, but when you call me up for advice, and whenever someone comes to me because they went through a heartbreak or something like that also makes me feel like Superwoman. And she was like, so even though like, yes, it's great to like play soccer, but like this stuff makes me feel better than soccer ever did. And it was just a reminder that like, yes, I can be sad if I do have to lose the sport, but it doesn't have to be a void in my life.
That's good. That's good advice. That just like kind of makes me think of myself, like whenever someone messages me about compartment syndrome, like it seems stupid, or like someone, like last week some girl messaged me and she's like, I don't know why I've been so nervous to message you, but I just wanted to let you know like how much your podcast has helped me. Like I've had compartment syndrome, like blah blah. Like that feels 10 times better than being on player of the week status. Like,
yes,
that is something that you know that you are helping somebody and you're making a difference in somebody's life. And yeah, like I think that you hit it head on. Like soccer is great and it's fun and it got us all to great schools and it's, built relationships with teammates, and I'm sure like your parents were super involved, and it does all of these amazing things. But at the end of the day, like it's over for everybody at some point. And then what? Like you have to use all the lessons you've learned along the way to be a good person. And I feel like usually athletes are great people because they've learned all of these skills. And, when it comes time to put them to the test, like what kind of person are you going to be? I feel like that's something we should ask ourselves a lot.
I totally agree with that. And I like how you said that it ends for everyone at one point, because you're right. And that was one of the conversations I had with my coaches whenever I was going through all this, just the injury process, and telling them like, hey, this is, the chance of me being able to play again, all those things. And they were like, it ends for everybody at one point, and you've had 4 great years here. And of course, we want you to play again, but if your body says no, we're not going to be angry with you. And at the end of the day, like, unless you're winning the national championship in your last game, like, does any athlete really leave on the note that they want to? So like I said, last semester, I've always loved soccer and I always will love soccer, but last semester it was not as enjoyable for me. It was more of, I'm just trying to survive this. So of course I would love to go into another season of soccer and just get to have that feeling of enjoying it again. But at the same time, if I have to walk away and I don't get that, I still have like so many great memories on the field, even including that last semester where I got to know my teammates and relate to them on a different level than just playing on the field with them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's not something you just snap your fingers and it's a perspective you have, but I mean, it's the reality of it. And that's like, I think one of the beautiful things about sports is there's a clock on it. It's not something you can enjoy for the rest of your life. You can watch it, you can take your kids to practice, but for yourself, like, there's a clock. So you have to truly enjoy it every minute you get it.
Absolutely. And I'd say one of my questions for you for just encouragement is, how did you deal with the unknown? Because for me right now, it's so hard to be like I want to look forward to seasons so much, but I'm like, I don't want to get attached to that thought because I know like I might lose that, I might not get to play. So yeah, how did you handle that?
I think, I don't know if I ever did handle it well. I think so a little background on me. I wear everything on my face. Like, I either have a great attitude or a really bad attitude, and that's just how I've been my entire life. And I went down some bad paths of having a really bad attitude around my teammates and just kind of bring a very negative environment. And it took me some time to like be honest with myself and realize that. So like, when I was going through all of this, like, I could feel when I was bringing the people around me down. And like, that was kind of how I dealt with not knowing what was going on with myself. I was like mad and I was jealous that everyone else had a plan. Everyone else was playing and everyone else knew like, oh, they started this year, next year they're going to start again. And I was just angry. And it was the darkest time in my life. But I think how I got through is reminding myself like, okay, so freshman year happened. I had 2 surgeries freshman year. And I knew like, I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to rehab back and I'm going to play. And you know what? If I don't, I know how to go about it because I did it twice. So I think I reminded myself that like, even if it doesn't work out, I can keep doing what I'm doing. I can figure out other ways to contribute, but I know how to do it. I know how to go through rehab. I know how to go through the surgeries. I know how to get tested. And oddly enough, that was comforting to me to just know like, I wasn't the star player, but man, I was the star in the training room. Like, I knew what I was doing. And like, I was a part of this team. Like, I worked my whole life to go and play Division I soccer and I was a part of it. And at the end of the day, like, it wasn't easy. It's still not easy to look back and like, no, I didn't do exactly what I wanted to do. But like we talked about earlier, like finding different ways to make an impact. And like, I became an advocate for my teammates who like were struggling with things. Like, I would be the person to go and talk to the coaches about, this isn't working. Like, you aren't treating us well, whatever. But yeah, I think finding a different role made the unknown like kind of more comforting, I guess.
I like that you said that you were an advocate for your teammates, because looking back, if I have any regret for the fall, it would be, yes, I was injured. And I don't want to say I had like a woe is me attitude, but I think like my cup got so empty that like I just wasn't able to pour into other people.
Mhm.
And looking back, like I couldn't have changed my injury, but maybe I could have encouraged someone else that was going through something hard as well.
Mhm.
And I just don't think I did that because I was so worried about what was going on with my body.
Mhm. Well, that was like a 3 surgeries later kind of thing. So be a little gentle on yourself because trust me, freshman year, I was not a good version of myself. So, and it's exhausting. It's truly exhausting. We were talking before I was recording, but Swindall has to go to rehab before practice, go sit and watch practice, sometimes go to rehab after. Like, it becomes exhausting and people just don't understand that all the time. And it's hard.
Yes, absolutely. And it's hard because, your teammates, because I'm still in that recovery process, my teammates being like, oh, let's go play basketball, or let's like have an intramural team, or let's go hiking, or let's do these things. And I'm like, of course I like go ahead, like have fun, but like I can't join you kind of thing. Like that's not where my body's at yet, like I still struggle walking up the stairs of my house sometimes, so
I'm kind of curious. So when me and Swindle talked a few months ago, she was like, can you just be honest with me? Like, I need to know, like, this, I need to know that. Like, just be honest with me. And I feel like I was honest with you. Has everything I said so far been good? I don't know.
yes, absolutely.
And I think that's really important. Like, if you're someone who's been through something hard and someone comes to you for advice or just like questions about, like, how does this work? Like, is it gonna work? Like, should I get the surgery? Whatever. Be honest, because, like, I think I could have talked to Swindle and been like, yeah, like, get the surgery. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, it's going to change your life. But you have to be like, yeah, like, it helped me, sort of. And I came back from it. I kind of played a little bit. And I'm not regretful that I did it. But, like, I would talk to your surgeon about this. And I hope that helped you. But just the whole principle of this, just be honest with people. If you are that person who can, give advice or just talk to somebody through an experience you had, I feel like, especially with injuries, like, this is their life. This is what they love to do. Like, if you can be honest and really help them make a decision that can impact that, just do it. Just be honest.
Yeah, so you were actually the first person I reached out to whenever I found out I had compartment syndrome. And I mean, I was just like a deer in headlights. Like I was in shock that I had it, and I had so many questions. And your honesty helped me so much because I was like, I don't know anything about the surgery. I don't know anything about the recovery, any of these things. And I didn't want sunshine and roses. I wanted you to be blunt and be like, no, the recovery is hard. This is what it looks like. Because I would rather be prepared than go into that and think, oh, this is going to be easy and I'm going to be back in 6 weeks playing soccer. And I would say a piece of honesty for me, for people to hear, is like, compartment syndrome doesn't just affect your legs. Like, it's a mental game. And for me, so they did my blood work and they found some things that were off. So they had like asked me questions. They were like, do you have diabetes in your family? Like, they asked me like questions like that. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, why? And they told me that my A1C, which is your blood glucose level over the last 3 months, was really elevated. Like, it was really high. So I was supposed to see the endocrinologist in January, and they ended up like pushing that up, and they're like, no, like you need to come in sooner. So I went and saw the endocrinologist, and I was having a ton of symptoms. Like I was having insomnia. I was waking up in the middle of the night feeling sick. Just a bunch of weird stuff was going on. And I went in, they took all my blood work again after surgery when things got better, and everything was back to normal. And they like did some more investigating, and they said that my liver wasn't working correctly because I was in pain from compartment syndrome.
No.
So my liver actually stopped working correctly and caused me to have a bunch of like other symptoms. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying, guys. It can get
affects
worse.
everything. It affects everything. And it did get worse because I started out that season and I didn't know what was going on, and I kept playing. And I mean, every other season, like, don't get me wrong, it was bad and it was hard. But this last season of my life was just so much harder. And it started affecting other parts of my body and made me have like real symptoms. Like I'd be sitting in class and I'd be like, oh, wait, like I'm getting dizzy or like something's going on. And it was all because my blood work got really messed up. And there's a few other things that were off too, but that was the main one that was messed up. So,
wow, that's absurd.
Yeah.
Wow, that's scary. Like, that's scary. That's what I mean. Like, oh, I'm sorry you went through that.
I know. And that's why I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have been pushing through it.
So I feel like we should add this in here just because this is probably one of the biggest questions people ask, but like, kind of explain some of your symptoms. I know we've been saying like symptoms. We haven't really explained what the symptoms are to people. And when you Google it, it's easier to just hear from someone who's been through it. So kind of talk about your symptoms a little bit.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know if you got like complete numbness of your feet. I never had complete numbness, but I started getting like tingling, almost like it felt like they were going, like falling asleep kind of. And I would always say it felt like my calves were like rock hard, and it felt like they were like cement was like the hardest thing. And it'd be the weirdest thing because I'd be playing soccer and I'd be fine, and then I wouldn't be, and I would just like die. I just like couldn't run anymore. It wasn't very like gradual. I just get to a point where I was done. Mm-hmm. And I would always say they felt super duper heavy. Like it felt like I was carrying weight on my legs. And the biggest thing for me that I just realized like this isn't normal is I was never recovering. So no matter what I did, I would change my diet, I'd change my sleep, Like I would take different vitamins. Like I was just like, oh, I'm not recovering well. And it just never got better. No matter what I did, like it wasn't making those symptoms go away. And it got to the point where like even standing up in clinicals at nursing would start hurting. My feet would start tingling. Walking up the stairs in my house would cause that. So yeah, it just got to the point where I was doing less and the symptoms were stronger the more I did.
Yeah. And then swelling, that was like one of the big
Oh my gosh. Yes, the swelling was, yeah, I got after that SLU game, whenever I went down, the swelling was so bad that I woke up the next morning and I had to sit and like scoot down my stairs in my house.
Oh, all right. So let's just fast forward a little bit. I don't want to go too much longer, but so I am going to have Swindle on a few months down the road again to talk about where she is, just because I think it's important. She has, I mean, the next few weeks in her recovery are probably going to be super critical ones. She's going to probably find out a lot of things, but that's kind of why I wanted to have her on now and then later. So, what are you going to what if it doesn't work out? Like, I know this is a very blunt and hard question, but it's reality, and I'm just kind of curious, like, what's going on in your head.
Yeah. So whenever I was home for break and I was going through this recovery process, what I told my whole family was my goal is to play again. That is where my heart's at. That's what I want to do. I want to have another season as a Razorback. I love it here. But I will not put myself through what I did last semester. That was way too painful physically. It was way too hard on me mentally. It's just not healthy. Like it proves like in other aspects of my life, like it was affecting it. So my goal is to start running soon for rehab and hopefully do in a month or two, do some technical sessions and maybe play in a spring game. And if there's not pain, then I do want to play again next fall. But if there's pain, I will step away because I want to do nursing. That's my future. And I don't want to get to a point where I can't do those 12-hour shifts on my feet because my legs are not working right. And that was one of the things, like telling my family that it was hard because it almost felt like they were walking on eggshells around me because it's not that I think they disagreed with me. I think they were just worried about me. And then I went to dinner one night with my Nana, and God bless her, she's so blunt. She was like, I just wish you'd walk away. Like, I wish you just wouldn't play again. And it's not that that was going to change my mind, but it just felt good to hear someone finally say it, and it just reminded me that like, I didn't go through that alone. Like my family had to go through that with me, and that was hard on them as well. Even though like physically it was my legs, like emotionally it was affecting all of us. So yeah, I know if it doesn't work and I say I do have to have the surgery again or whatever it may be, I know they'll have my back in that, and that feels good. But I'd say, yeah, definitely pain. I will stop playing. But if there's pain playing soccer, but I can still do like moderate working out and I can still do nursing, then I would probably opt to not do the surgery again. But if I can't do nursing, I will have to do the surgery again.
Yeah. And I think first of all, very mature perspective for you to have. Like, I think you already have a good understanding of like your values, and, obviously you love soccer so much, but if one season is going to put you back to not like do what you want to do for the rest of your life, then like I think you have a very mature perspective on that. And secondly, I think I told this to you when we talked, but for me, like, and I think a lot of people, sometimes time is the magic. And if you can't play, like, I really do think that like your surgery is going to be successful. I just think that like time, like they've learned more things, and like I don't know, I have a good feeling. But I do think like not playing again, if you can't, like you will be able to have a normal life. You'll be able to have a normal, happy, healthy life. Like I really do believe that, and I hope that that is something that you're okay with. Like even if and I don't want to sound like a negative Nelly, because I'm not. Like I truly do think that you will find yourself after rehab getting to play. Like I really do, and I'm excited to cheer you on. But if you don't, or if you do, like I just really do think that you will be able to have your fullest potential life. I do.
That is so encouraging, because that was my biggest concern going into surgery, was like, I would love to take the chance of playing again and getting the surgery, but I don't want to make it worse, because right now I can still have a normal life.
Yep.
And that was one of the things I talked to you about, and you were like, no, like you can still have a happy, normal life. I'm not promising you'll play soccer again, but you can have a normal life.
Mhm.
And so going back to my friend that had the surgery at the day before I did, we were talking a couple days ago, and she had told me that she had gone up to her 4 mile progression and she was having the same symptoms she had had before surgery. So she was concerned that didn't work. And that was one of the conversations that like we had. And of course, we're in different positions in life because she is about to leave for college versus me, who's like about to leave college. But it was just one of those things where it's like, do you do the surgery again? Do you not? Like, is that worth it kind of thing? And I think, again, like we're just in different situations in our life. And I think for me, it's more of what is going to be best for like my future career kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking like I don't regret what happened. I don't regret it. Like in the moment, those surgeries seemed what was best for me. Would I go back to back again? Probably not.
Really. So if you like had the symptoms, like you wouldn't have done it again.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I don't want to say I'm sure because there actually probably isn't, but I feel like there has to be something like research out there. Like, does that make the percentage of your success rate, does it make it higher? Does it make it lower? I feel like I was so set on the surgery being the automatic fix. Like,
Yes.
okay, I have my compartments are swollen and there's fluid or whatever. And I was like, once they cut it, I'll be fine. Like I was so set on that. And I just think that there's so many other things that go into it. And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was the same way. And like I know everybody heals differently, but like I was like, oh, like I'm gonna be like the inspiring story. Like they're gonna do my surgery and like I'm gonna have no pain and I'm gonna go back and play soccer. And at the end of the day, like I said, like hearing my friend be like, no, there's still pain there. Or like hearing you be like, yeah, I did it 4 times. And like it's just this reality check of like, it's okay if that isn't the case for me. Like I'm still going to get to do the things I want to do.
Mhm. And like everyone makes decisions differently. Again, like my family wasn't happy when I decided to go in for a third and fourth, but the fourth one, which I know I talked to you a little bit about, was definitely the one for the rest of my life. Like I think I would 100% back anybody up for that. Like when you're not like going into like crazy preseason and trying to recover to run marathons, like I did the fourth one to have a happy life, and it's done that for me so far. Like I've even got to play a little bit, and like that is what I wanted to do. It set me up for it. So I don't disagree with that, but I just think like I don't know, I don't think people quite understand how tough of a surgery it is on your body and how much goes into it. But yeah, everyone makes decisions differently, everyone does things differently, but yeah, I don't know. Looking back, I don't know what I would have done.
Do you feel like your symptoms have gotten better with each surgery?
So first one was complete fail. I told you about that. Like nothing, like completely felt the exact same. And then I only waited from August. I had my second one in December. So I just went right back in and did it. And I felt great after my second surgery. Like I played the beginning of the next season and felt great. And then it just did the exact same thing again. Like it was that slow progression. So then I got surgery. I didn't get surgery that year. I just tried to rehab. We were like, no surgery. So I just tried to rehab. And I tried which I know we didn't even get into, like I tried the Botox, literally did nothing. And then the next year I got my next one. And then senior year when I was like, what am I doing? I got the last one. But yeah, I mean, after my second one, like I felt on top of the world. Did I manage things well? Like I don't know where I went wrong, and I don't think we'll ever know exactly what happened. But then I went through the whole process again of like, is it in my head? Like, do I think I have this? Do I think the surgery is an easy fix? So I want to do it. And it was just the mental battle again times 3 because it was all in my head again.
Yes. I have 2 comments on what you said. One, I just want to emphasize like how you said like it gets progressively worse. Like I just want to say I completely agree with that because my doctor said that is not what happens, and that is completely like what happened. Like it progressively got worse. And he had told me like, no, like you can keep playing. It's not going to get any worse. And like it did. And I saw that in each season I played. I saw that especially in this last season I played, like it definitely does progressively get worse.
I am curious though. I wonder like I need to research this more, but the whole science behind like, okay, since it does get progressively worse, even though we're told it's not, if it does, when is the best time to get surgery? Like if you catch it early, is that better? If you wait until it's unbearable, is that better? I'd be really curious to know the science behind that.
Yeah, I wonder that too. And then I know a lot of people opt to not get the surgery. So if you choose not to, how like does it just plateau at one point? Does it continue to get worse? Like does rest make it a little better? Like that was my concern of like, oh, if I don't get the surgery, is it going to keep getting worse? Like what's going to happen? It's like I'd be interested to see that.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. There's so many pieces to it that I don't think we think about a lot until you like really dive into it.
Absolutely.
But okay, any other questions or anything you want to talk about?
I just want to say it has felt great to talk to someone who has gone through the same thing. I know not putting down any other injury because every injury is so hard, but just compartment syndrome, like you said, it's not like we went down in a game and tore our ACL. It's something that you can't really see. So just sometimes you can feel really alone in that. And it's just been good to talk to someone and know that like other people are also experiencing this.
Yeah, well, compartment syndrome has quite literally changed my life. So I hope it changes your life too. And it can be really
Absolutely.
positive. It's taught me so many things. So I'm personally excited to watch your process with it and your growth. And I hope all the listeners are. Yeah, we will definitely have you back in a few weeks/months. We want all the updates. I want everything. So I wish you all the best. And I'm just really excited to hear how it all goes.
Thank you. I appreciate the encouragement.